Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
Hey, what's up, Blazer fans? Welcome to the Blazers Edge podcast, part of the Almighty Baller Radio Network. I'm Tara, and joining me, as he does every week, is Dan Meringue. How you doing, Dan?
Oh, I'm doing stupendous. You know, feeling like quite like having like what feels like an elephant foot attached to you. So it's
right, the sprained ankle.
Yes, I have to throw that out there so everybody can just bask in my suffering just as much as I do. I am the worst like injured sick person you've ever met. I want everybody else to be like just to feel that too.
Oh, did you want to know how I'm doing? Thanks for asking, Dan.
No, I told you I'm the worst injured sick person. I want you to feel my pain, okay? Feel it. I've been feeling the pain ever since you twisted your ankle because you've been keeping me regularly updated. And I was hoping to save all the listeners from all of the regular updates about your poor swollen ankle. Everybody take it. And if I ever find you a guy who ran the red light,
for a second,
I will hurt you.
And you hope Dan has a speedy recovery. Thanks for asking how I'm doing. We're in the middle of a 3-day break in Blazer games. And that is the worst thing for me. I should not be stuck.
Yeah, it's not even the All-Star break.
When they have these long breaks.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's not even the All-Star break. I mean, I remember the game ended the other night, and I looked at the schedule, and I was like, "What the hell is this? All weekend and a Monday?
Like all weekend with no Blazer games. It was just and the other thing, whatever it does, to me, making me antsy not having Blazer games to watch. Because I can always just, rewatch them I've watched the Minnesota one like 3 times now. But the thing that I don't like about it too is it really upsets the rhythm of the team. Because I feel like they've just started to get in the rhythm. They're the team that we recognize.
Whoa, Debbie Downer.
What?
Upset the rhythm of the team. You're already worried about it. Like, you're supposed to be the one that's sitting here. You're supposed to be the one that's supposed to be like, hey, they're riding high. Like, this is the perfect time for them. They've got a few days off. They can rest and they can ride this high and really push it to close out the first part of the season into the All-Star break. And I'm supposed to come in here like, you kidding me? These many days off, they're going to lose their rhythm immediately and be done. And they're going to crash and burn. And we're going to wonder what the hell happened. Like, don't you know how this works?
That was imitation of me. It was not a very good one. What I'm getting at is not only do they have this big break in the middle, but they also have this strange thing where they were down in Dallas, and then I believe they flew home, and now they're going to fly down again to Los Angeles, and it's just got to be upsetting. And remember, at the beginning of the year when they had that big, long home stretch, and I said at some point that I was looking forward to them going on a road because they could establish rhythm, and then I felt like after a couple of those road stretches, they had started to, their communication was getting stronger. They were, hitting on, their offense was back to what we were more familiar with. And now this weird 3-day break. And not only that they have this weird 3-day break now, but then, like you said, within a month, they're going to have another big break. And it's just, you think that when you're a highly performing athlete, I know rest is super important, but I also think routine is super important. I mean, that's one of the things that we know is that routine is super important, and their routines are getting messed with.
I think that they're okay with their routines getting messed with right now because, like, for the first time probably in their professional careers, seriously for Zach Collins, they're getting extended breaks. Like, this wasn't a thing with the old schedule. Moving the schedule back basically 2 weeks from what it was 2 years ago, this is what happens. I don't know, like touching on like flying back from Dallas to Portland to fly back to Cali. Personally, this time of year in Portland, wouldn't you rather just like stay in Dallas for a few days? Like
Or Los Angeles?
Yeah, well, LA nightlife on the weekend, I'm okay with the team not going down there and staying in Los Angeles for a few days.
Who's the Debbie Downer now?
Yeah, hey, you know what? I'd rather not. I mean, there's a few guys on the team that aren't even old enough to go out and do anything, but even then, I'm still Little hesitant. I mean, in Dallas, you can go get some Papados, get some fried gator bites. I mean, I could.
I've never been to Dallas, so I don't know.
Oh, Dallas is great. I love Dallas. There's certain parts of Texas that are like so different from everything else in Texas. Dallas is one of the good ones.
I hope to go. I want to go to an away game in Texas at some point. But anyway, to get back to our Blazers.
No, I'm not going to let you get back yet. Do not go to a game in San Antonio. That arena is awful to watch a game in. I have to get that in there.
Oh, their music sounds really loud. It even comes in over the TV.
Yeah, the PA guy's awful, and the seating is just weird and cramped. Like I was stationed in San Antonio, and I went to a bunch of events at the SBC Center before it was the AT&T Center, whatever it was. All in all, it sucks. I guess I'm spoiled with the Moto Center. No, American Airlines Arena is great. That is a great place to catch a game. I think that would be fun. Yeah.
We're going, my husband and I are flying down to Utah in February to go take in a Blazer Jazz game, which I'm super excited for. I think that'll be my first time seeing a game outside the Moda Center, so I can't wait for that.
For anybody who's looking for
now I'm going to get back to the Blazers.
No, I got to put one more plug.
The nice thing about having this break is they do get to have practice. What?
I said go catch a game at the Kings new arena. It's beautiful.
You're saucy today.
I am, damn right. Practice is good, but rest is good this time of the year too. Like, there's certainly where Evan Turner had to leave for personal issues. This allows him to have an extended period. Dame's obviously always got little nicks going on. Nurk's a big dude, so there's always, and that guy gets hit in the face more than anybody I've ever seen. He's got cuts all over his arms. I mean, there's all kinds of nicks and knacks and scratches and pulls and tweaks all over the place. So I would not be surprised if Stotts said, "Hey, here's a blackout day, or two." Or 2.5.
But it still gives them a chance to get in there and go over some stuff that
they may have a film day.
That I personally like, because I think they've actually been. I texted you right before, was it right after the Minnesota game, where I was like, have they had practice? Because they were playing really well, and they got all those alley-oops and dunks in, which you know how much I love, and those are something you just have to practice, right? So
shout out Pat
just
Connaughton.
Go in and spend a day doing that.
I don't even know about that. I think if you start trying to tweak, here's my whole take on the alley-oops and things looking more natural. I think a lot of it just comes down to more familiarity and guys being more comfortable with each other. And Dame and CJ have talked about it a lot in the post-game interviews over the last couple of weeks. And Dame actually hinted on it specifically in a podcast he appeared on last week, where he said that when the season started, they would run plays, and the opponent would know the play and scout the play and take away option 1 and 2. And instead of like having a natural counter, not something that's written into the play, but having a natural counter, like, hey, the defense is playing for the high screen here between Dame and Nurk. Having Nurk have the mindset to say, screw this, I'm slipping the screen and ducking in now while the defender's trying to trap early, and let Dame break free and see if I can run down the middle. Now you're causing some chaos, and the defense is having to adjust on the fly versus having to adjust to something they've scouted for. And I think they're doing more of that. And that's becoming more and more natural, which is why you're seeing guys like Connaughton get free. Like, Pat's out there playing free and loose. Like, I'm going to run the break because, hey, maybe CJ will toss me a lob and boom, reverse alley-oop. Those are the kind of things that happen, I think, when you start getting more comfortable and more familiar with each other. And these guys have played together for a couple years, yeah, but that comfort level in a skill set develops throughout the season. It can disappear over the summer. That's why you see teams, grow and fall apart year after year, because you get a certain chemistry level that comes along with being comfortable with one another, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're advocating that is stuff that happens during the game, not so much during practice.
Yeah, it's just like, I think you can build those bonds a little bit in practice, but they become solidified in games. Like when you see it more and more, because some guys aren't practice players. That's a real thing in the NBA. And I know that maybe comes as a shock to some fans. But
that's the Cavs thing, isn't it?
There are guys that just like walk through practice, or there are teams that only have like half-hour practices. D'Antoni is one of them. D'Antoni of the Rockets, he's notorious for having like half-hour, 45-minute practices. Like get in, get after it, get out. Like you're not building a lot of sense of familiarity and bonds and comfort level when you're doing that. You're just going at it hard, and then those are the players' coaches in a so to speak kind of way about how different teams, different coaches, and organizations go about practice.
Well, you've almost convinced me that a 3-day break is not going to be detrimental to the team's rhythm and routine.
God, I'm the one being positive. That lets you know what 2018 is a wild year.
To have all this time on my hands. Because all this time on my hands makes me go down internet rabbit holes that I really have no business going down. Right. So the one I've been looking at lately is trying to just figure out whether or not the Blazers offense is back. You know, just as we were ready to say that the Blazers offense
back, or have the Blazers turned the corner. I see we've reached that portion of the season.
I very specifically did not say had they done that. I wanted to know if the offense is back, because when you look at the statistics, which is what I was doing because the Blazers had too many days off, here's what's going on offensively. So for the whole year, if you look at for the whole year, the Blazers are at number 20 in points per game, 104.6.
Let that settle in for a second. Basically, 105 points a game is number 20 in the NBA.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
God, that is worth pausing about.
Like, you think about, like, games used to be played in, like, 91 to 94. Like, that was the average NBA game. 15 more points a game is a substantial increase, if I can actually say substantial. Just for people to kind of have some perspective as far as, like, how the NBA has evolved, like, and how you consume analytics and stats that are out there. 105, if you'd taken 105 points per game and said, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, that your team was going to average that, you'd take that without even blinking. Without the correct context, it's really hard to appreciate what 105 points a game really is unless it's compared against something, like the Warriors dropping 114, 115 a game.
Well, you know what? Blazers are 104.6. There's actually several that are higher at 105. So there's the Phoenix Suns at 104.9. New York Knicks are 105. The Bucks are at 105. The Magic are at 105. I mean, yeah, you're right. That was an interesting way to look at it. That 104.6 is there's 20 teams that are higher. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to go on. Field goal percentage. The field goal percentage is number 18 in the league at 45.5.
And that's increased recently because they were...
well, we're going to get to that.
They
right
were
now
bottom
I'm talking
third.
About over the course of the year.
I know, but I'm saying they were bottom third, so that's a better number. I'm doing is lending perspective here for where we're looking at.
Yeah,
things.
well, you're spoiling my big reveal.
Dun, dun, dun,
What's the surprise in that? Okay, at 3-point percentage, they are shooting 37.9, which is actually number 3. They have a nice 3-point percentage, much better. I looked at fouls drawn. I just was curious to see how things were going there. So they're number 23 in the league at fouls drawn at 19.2 per game.
But if you look at where that is, again, that's a lot like the points per game. Like if you look at the other teams around that area, like Portland, if they increased one more, they'd be drastically higher.
Yeah, that's one more. There's a big cluster.
Yeah, there's a big cluster right there. Like they're not in a bad position. Their number would be higher if Lillard hadn't missed 7 or 8 games, because he's the guy who draws more fouls than anybody. I mean, clearly. Mm-hmm. Again, proceed, ma'am.
The final one is their offensive rating. They are, for the year, number 14 at 105.1. Can you give me a refresher, what's the difference between offensive rating? I know that's a combination of things versus just points per game.
Typically, because there's a couple different variations.
The offensive rating was from the NBA stats.nba.com.
Okay, so there's a couple different ones that are out there. That's your most common, or stats.nba.com. Their proprietary one. There's Basketball References, and there's ESPN's. Each one has slightly different methodology behind it. For consistency's sake, not steak. Good God, I'm hungry.
It's that all meat diet you're on, Dan.
Yeah, it really is. The
You're
anti-vegan.
on the Pat Connaughton no vegetable all meat
Yes,
diet.
absolutely. And me and Pat both have the same bunnies too. I'm not talking about eating bunnies. I'm talking about hops.
I'm laughing so hard.
It's because of bunnies and your infatuation with the word bunnies.
Okay.
For those that don't understand, Tara is confused. She's confused as to why bunnies is both vertical and hops, as well as an easy layup. She has bothered me about this for what feels like 8 months. She's like, why are these two the same thing? Like, why can you use these? Why could this be used for both? And I'm like, I don't know.
Bunnies being layups makes no sense. But back to offensive rating.
Oh, I think we just had to explain why you were snorting.
Okay, back to offensive rating.
So offensive rating is typically going to reflect the average points that you're going to get per 100 possessions. And being as the Blazers, and most of the NBA plays around 100 possessions, your pace, 100, is going to reflect that. That's why they're so close now.
Tends to be a possession based as opposed to just points per game, which is just purely points per game. Okay, so respect. So
I love that you're trying to steer the ship so well right now.
20,
not going to work.
The teams for the whole year. If you look at the last 10 games, which goes back to I believe the Oklahoma City Thunder game, the last 10 games where they're 6-4. They are number 6 in points per game at 111.1. They are number 6 in field goal percentage, which is 48.2. They have slipped compared to the rest of the league slightly at 3-point percentage. They're now number 5 instead of number 3. But interestingly, the percentage itself has gone up. So everybody is shooting better from 3 right now in the league, it appears. Mm-hmm. They're drawing, 20 fouls instead of 19.2, and their offensive rating has gone all the way up to 112.9, which is enough for number 3 in the league. Now, I know that the very next thing you're going to say is is the offense back? And you're going to go, yeah, well, if the offense is back, what happened to the defense? Okay, we're not going to talk about defense today. Mm-hmm. Today we're going to focus on the offense. I want to know why. Okay, you could talk about it is it just as simple as, well, the Blazers stopped playing defense? Because I would argue they've not stopped playing defense. Why? What is going on with the offense? What has happened that has made such a, I think, significant turn for them? Not turning the corner. Shoot, I accidentally said it.
Yeah, there it is. What
do you think is contributing to this recent offensive production by the Trailblazers?
All right, so there's a couple things going on with Portland's offense. The first thing for me is that, yes, they are playing better, but I think there's caveats to all of this, like there is throughout the entire season. First of all, the Blazers' schedule has been a little bit softer. Yes, they've had some games against some tougher opponents, but they've also had some games against some really just not good opponents. The Mavericks are a team that can be in games, but they're not a complete team. Portland's beat them twice in the past, week? 10 days, something along those lines. No, less than a week. You've got the Pacers in there, you've got the Suns in there. In between, you've got losses to the Timberwolves at full strength, the Nuggets not at full strength, and you got a win against the Timberwolves missing their best player. So there's a weird thing going on here, and I don't want to discount it because I think there are some certain building blocks that you can build off of. Namely, Damian Lillard is playing at MVP level status. CJ McCollum is playing some of the best ball of the season, and when you've got those two guys rolling, everything else is just pretty much gravy. And when you get more contributions from Noah Vonleh, I'm sitting here looking at a stat from Noah Vonleh. This is why he popped into my head. Not Noah Vonleh. When Noah Vonleh is getting on the floor, Portland's either doing things really well or really bad. So the fact that we've seen him a little bit more recently is probably a good thing because Portland's been able to actually get guys in garbage time with a win. But guys behind CJ and Dame,
you probably meant more like Aminu and Davis,
yes,
and Connaughton and Napier.
Exactly. Portland's best lineups, or two-man lineups in January, that have been the best, the 1, 2, and 3, are Baz and CJ, or Baz and Dame, Baz and CJ, Dame, CJ, and Baz. So the 3-guard lineup that you've fallen in love with has been, I think, a big part of it, and that's just that's just putting more offensive players on the floor, more guys that can do more than one or two things. So with that happening, you're getting less siloed players put in positions where they can't excel. And I think Portland has done the best up until this point of putting players up and down the lineup in the best positions to succeed. When you back that up or complement that with the best play of the season from Dame and CJ, yeah, the offense is going to look damn good.
I have two other things that I'm curious about, and then we also got a really great question from some listeners. So I'll start with mine, and then you can tell me whether or not I'm totally off base on these things, and then we can roll into the listener question. The first thing that I've noticed that I'm wondering if I'm seeing correctly, or if you also see it, is at the beginning of the year we talked a lot about spacing and like the paint being super clogged up, and people not guarding, not respecting Aminu's 3-point shot, and there just being too many people for people to get through there and get the ball in the bucket. Do you see better spacing?
Turners. Yeah, I mean, look at what Portland's been doing recently. Who's been seeing the floor more? Shabazz Napier, Pat Connaughton. Those guys are out on – hell, even Zach Collins. Like, the fact that he's out there and Dame, CJ, whoever – passes him the ball to the corner and the defender doesn't look at him and go, that's cute. They at least go, I should probably run at him. That alone just shifts the defense enough, more so than having somebody like Harkless or Turner out in the corner. I mean, again, I don't want it to be unfair or to throw shots at those guys. They're just not natural floor spacers. So when you're putting Pat and Napier and playing a little bit smaller, you've got Aminu, who's now holding it basically 40% from three for the season. He dropped a little below, he's come back, and he's been as high as like 48 for long stretches. That's a big time impact. CJ coming back to form at the 3-point line, and Dame just being absolute fire from there lately has definitely played a part of that too. When those guys get rolling that well from the outside, you're in trouble as an opponent, because now all the other pages of the playbook start making a lot more sense. And really, I think the bottom line is, and this is something we've obviously talked about Blazers Edge a lot over the last, probably a year or so, is that if you can't hit the three, you're not going to be on the floor unless you're a guy like Ed Davis who brings other things every single night, or Yusuf Nurkic. Otherwise, you're not going to be out there, which is why Noah Vonleh and Maurice Harkless have been in minutes purgatory.
Right, because they're just not hitting enough. They're not.
They're negative floor spacers, and there's no room in the rotation for any more of those guys.
So so you're thinking that the rotations that they're now seeing on the floor are being respected by the opponent because we've got more reliable 3-point shooters in there right now. They've figured out
shooting and the ability to do more than just shoot. Like, Pat Connaughton can do more than just shoot. Shabazz Napier can do more than just shoot. Al-Farouq Aminu is even, to his detriment of a few times over the last couple of weeks, can do more than shoot. But he's been able to close out and do some things off that have been surprising and welcome, as opposed to complete disaster that we saw over the last couple of years. So that's been a fun development too.
Well, in addition to Aminu doing things that actually look like part of, planned plays, as opposed to he got stuck with the ball and now he's got to move it up the court because
late shot clock Aminu is not something I wish upon my worst enemy.
Right, but we're seeing him, I've seen him cut a couple of times. I've seen him pass to people on cuts, and I've also seen somebody else contribute more to the offense besides just put back dunks. Ed, I think they've given him a few more specific plays to put in. He's getting more assists right now.
Yeah, the play is called dunk. You hit right trigger and X on the controller when he's near the rim, and then he goes left-handed and dunks.
No, but what I mean is Ed himself is creating offense for others. So if you look at his in his last 10 games, and 8 of the last 10 games, he's at least had an assist. So I'm not saying he's like point guard Ed Davis. I'm just saying they are now adding a play where Ed Davis is on purpose passing the ball to somebody else to complete the play, whereas as opposed to him standing by the rim and just putting it back in. So 8 of the last 10 games, he's had at least one assist. So he's had 12 assists in the last last 10 games. He's had 25 assists this entire year, and 12 of them had been in the last 10 games. And I think that's on purpose. I don't think that's just like, suddenly he decided to do something. I think that's something that the offense has introduced. I mean, do you think that this is the time of year where they do start introducing things, or do you think that's just Ed operating on his own going, hey, I'm going to try this?
I think it's a little bit, probably more so towards Ed just doing a thing or two more. I think what's been shocking for a lot of people is it's almost been like another revelation for Ed Davis. People are like, oh my God, this Ed Davis has been great. Wish we had this guy. I'm like, we've had this guy. He was just hurt all season. Year. Yeah, he was just hurt all season last year. So Ed is doing exactly what Ed Davis did 2 years ago. Like this is who he is. This is what he does, and this is why I think he's going to be really, really valuable for over the next 2 weeks during the trade deadline. I think a lot of people are going to come calling, and he's showing out. Like he's building the resume. Like when you look at the box score, you're like 7-7. That doesn't look that great. Blah blah. I'm like, he's a backup big who literally doesn't have a play called for him.
Right.
and he delivers every night. Like there are very, very, very few guys. I put him and Taj Gibson in kind of like the same spot. Taj is a little bit more skilled, obviously, but they're guys that you want on your team because every night they show up. They're going to play defense. They're going to be active. They're going to bring you toughness. They're going to rebound. They're going to generate their own points. They're going to do all those things every single night. Those guys are never going to be a net negative on your team. And if they are, your team is having a god-awful night. Right. It's just what it is. Like the only thing those guys do is do good things for your team.
Right. I think Taj Gibson, as much as I love it, I think right now Taj has a little bit broader skill set, but I think
clearly, but their production and what they do and how they operate, like
right.
Minnesota's not running play. Well, they may run a high post action because Taj is a better passer, but this is just for a comparison's sake. But yeah, right. What Ed has done has been phenomenal.
Speaking of production, I've noticed this over the last couple of weeks as I've been trying to embrace the chaos that is Nurkic now. I've completely embraced the Aminu chaos, but now I'm turning myself to try to just accept Nurkic for what he is. He's a 7-foot person who prefers to lay it in rather than dunk.
I like to picture him as like a drunk grizzly bear at a circus. Like that's the only way I can explain like some of his moves when he goes to the rim. I'm like, what were you doing there? And then you see him other times, and it's like I go the other way here. Like again, drunken master. Like it was all part of the master plan. Like you see him, he's just out of control or off balance, and then all of a sudden, like everything, his back straightens out, his arm goes loose, and it's this glorious finger roll that somehow finds its way in. And you're like, how on earth did you go from that awkward position you were just in into finishing that gloriously? It's very, very Dirk Nowitzki-ish, where everything is just like what looks like a broken catapult until the very end, and you're like, oh my God, it's glorious. And then you get mesmerized by it, and you're like, please do that more. And then you want that drunken catapult to dunk. And then you just don't
the observation that I wanted to make about that is like I'll watch a game and I'll watch guys like Ed Davis and Aminu, and they'll do some really wonderful things where you just think, oh my God, they're having an amazing game, and then you look at their stats at the end of the night and they had like 7 points or 9 points and 10 rebounds or whatever. And then I'll watch Nurkic and I'll just be like, throwing things and banging my head and just like the whole time. And then I look and he's got 20 points and 12 rebounds, and I'm like, oh, that was like, the most painful 20 points I've ever seen.
And I think part of the frustration is because you see how much talent is there. Like you realize, like, dude, this guy is just supremely talented. And if he was checked in at all points in time and was clearly locked in on all facets, you'd be like, oh, okay. But I think a locked in Nurkic is different than an angry Nurkic. Like locked in Nurkic wouldn't be as good, because I think that emotion, that volatility is part of what makes him good.
It carries him up high with two hands with higher. The ball and slams it into the net as opposed to flipping it up and over his head.
It really does, because I think if you had like the rope, like I don't want to again take shots at Jokic in Denver here, but Jokic is like as vanilla as it gets on the court. Like I mean, you just look at him, like he's He's the most smooth-bodied guy you've seen in the league. Like, he looks like a 7-foot YMCA player. Like, he's supremely talented. But there's nothing about him where you're like, oh, I like his character or his emotion or the entertainment value that he brings outside of the basketball stuff. Like, I think Jokic is a better player than Nurkic, or a more skilled player, clearly. But I think the emotion and the theater that Nurkic brings is overall a good thing. Now, it can be a pain in the ass. There's no doubt about that. But I think in the long run, I think that's a good thing to have.
You know what I was just telling my husband I really appreciate about Nurkic is his two-handed rebounds and going up with two hands. I trust him when he goes up there that he's going to corral that rebound because he goes up with two hands. And boy, do I appreciate that after a year last year screaming at the TV rebounds about two hands.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to get to a question that we got from some listeners and it's about offense and wondering what you think. So this is from Sean Palumbo. Thank you so much for writing, Sean. He wrote or he or she, I'm not sure.
It's a very long and detailed question.
Yeah, it's a wonderful question that came in through Facebook, and we super appreciate it. And anybody who wants to give us questions, we would love to address them. But let me read it to you. It seems like whenever the Blazers are doing good offensively, it's a result of good ball movement. So why aren't they always trying to apply good ball movement during their games? Is it a result of good defense from the opposing team, or does it have something to do with the Blazers? So do you want to break that down into a few different pieces?
Yeah, I'm going to warm up the hot takes here. All right.
Oh, boy.
So.
You never get this excited when I ask you a question.
This is one of those questions I've kind of been beating the drum on for a while now. There's different kinds of ball movement up and down the NBA. There's teams that move the ball just for the sake of moving the ball. Like Philadelphia is one of those teams. Philadelphia moves the ball a ton. But do you associate their offense with the Golden State Warriors? No. Nobody does. Moving the ball without purpose is just stupid. They'll just flat out say it. So for anybody out there who says,
in your opinion,
anybody out there who says that moving the ball, the Blazers need to move the ball more, it doesn't make sense. Taking the ball out of the hands of your best players who work the best with the ball in their hand is a bad idea. Now, the reason why the offense looks better is something we talked about just a few minutes ago, and that the Blazers are putting each other in better positions to succeed. Evan Turner or Maurice Harkless or any other non-shooter, Yusuf Nurkic, catching the ball in the corner at the three-point line is not conducive to the Blazers' offense. The defense is not going to adjust. You're wasting the shot clock. You're not gaining anything by doing that. You don't look at
that and think good ball movement. You look at that and say, well, there's the end of a possession.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, hey, look, Evan Turner's in the corner on the baseline with 7 seconds left on the shot clock. If he doesn't make a move now or get a pass to the outside, this is going to be a really crappy possession. Like that's just the nature of it. Like, sure, could they find a way to make it out? And has Harkless shot better and has Turner shot better recently on their 1-3 a game? Yes, certainly. But it's about putting these guys in the best possible position to succeed. And if you look over the last 10 games, this is something we were talking about before we hopped on the air, Portland's offense has been playing better. I think we would all agree with that, right? The funny thing is Portland's passing the ball less. It's only 10 passes per game less. But it just kind of highlights the point that just moving the ball does not ensure that the Blazers are playing better offense. The assists are actually up, even though they're passing it less, which means their assist percentage is actually higher. It means they're getting in better position and they're knocking down shots. This comes with CJ McCollum finishing better, Dame and CJ knocking down more threes, Pat Connaughton finishing at the rim, Napier finishing shots, Aminu knocking down shots again. The offense looks a lot better when Portland knocks down shots. That's when it looks better. And I know that sounds really simple, but when guys pass up shots they should be taking, which it wasn't prevalent, but it was there for long stretches. And during those periods when Portland was losing, if you go back and look at how many threes they took and made, it was abysmally low. I can't remember who was saying it. I think it was Jason Quick the other night said that on the team bus that
Terry Stotts got on.
Yeah, well, he said, "Hey guys, we need to take more threes." And Dame and CJ kind of both put their hands up like, "Hey, I'll take more. Like they volunteered to take more because that's what they do. And when those guys are taking and making threes, it opens up every other page in the playbook. And that's fundamentally what it comes down to.
So let me summarize. I think what you're trying to point out is that it's not necessarily that the Blazers are, when they're looking good, necessarily doing more ball movement. They're doing movement.
Yes. It's
passing
about being
the same
effective.
amount, but it looks better because it's more effective, and they're making the right ones, and they're ending up with shots that are made.
Yes, Nurkic catching on the roll versus Nurkic posting up. Don't get me wrong. I want to see Nurkic improve his post game, but where he's most effective and most useful is as the roll man. And when he's catching on the roll, he's got a couple different options. He could continue to attack, which opponents want to take away, and when they do that, that opens up people on the other side of the play, and he can create off that and make that extra pass. And those are the opportunities where you get the defense off balance, and the defense is a pass behind. And they're constantly making not just one, but two, but three or four rotations. At that point in time, you've got them exactly where you want them, and you're getting the shot you want to get. And more often than not, it's going to end up in the hands of a shooter. And that in the long run is what has made Portland better now. Is that it's about prime opportunity and maximizing those chances. I know how simple that sounds, and people want to say, well, they just need to pass them more to get guys in better positions. No, you don't. You need to find your mismatches, and you need to find your advantages, and you need to press them at every opportunity. And Portland has done that by getting more shooters on the floor to open up the defense to allow Dame and CJ to get in the lane and create havoc. That's the bottom line, is this offense is entirely driven by those two guys. And when you have the supporting actors that can do more than one or two things, and they're doing them, the offense is going to look great. I mean, like we said, over the last 10 games, they had the third highest offensive rating. That is the offense that we're used to seeing. It's not some like big time change. It's, hey, Portland's hitting shots. Look how glorious it is.
And that's a combination of them creating their own shots as well as smarter ball movement.
Correct.
With better endpoints.
And if you want to go
shooters at the end.
Exactly. And if you want to go a little bit deeper, this kind of goes back to the familiarity that we were talking about. The simplest way to point this out is that before the season started, that there was a little thing that kind of came out that I don't think a lot of people heard. Nurkic didn't even know the entire playbook yet. So he had 20 games here in an entire summer and didn't know the entire playbook yet, which is a little worrisome to me. But the Dame said post-game a few nights ago that, hey, he's on board. The guys are more familiar with the playbook. And instead of just adjusting to what's written down on the paper, guys are making their own natural adjustments. Yusuf Nurkic is coming up to set a pick, and the defense knows what Portland is trying to go for here. So the big or center who's on Nurkic comes up to hedge and take away the pick and roll and the drive action from Damian Lillard. Well, Nurkic sees that a step early and opts to slip the pick. Now the defense is trying to recover. And as the defense is trying to recover, that natural reaction by Nurkic, by building up the familiarity and looking at and knowing what the defense is trying to take away, now the defense, the weak side defender steps in a little bit. Well, the weak side defender is on a guy who's a shooter now in Shabazz Napier. So now Dame turns the corner the other way and goes to Napier on the short side of the floor, who's got a wide open shot, or it's a skip pass to Nurkic running down the lane uncontested. Those little changes are what are appearing and being more effective, in my opinion, right now.
I mean, yeah, well, when you were talking about the slipping, I mean, it seems like you can only slip once you're confident about what to not do.
Yes, you're establishing your rhythm. And instead of curling off a down pick, you come up higher because you see the defense is sagging in, knowing they want to take away that elbow jumper that CJ likes to take, right around the free throw line. When he comes up off that down screen, CJ strings it out a little bit higher, and the defense gets caught behind that. Now he's got a wide open three to step into. Those are all little things. Pat Connaughton, he ran elevator action, which the Warriors are famous for doing, when you've got the two picks at the free throw line, where he came up and curled like he was going to shoot the three. Well, he came up and instead they initiated a dribble handoff and then cut back down the middle for an uncontested dunk because the defense got caught behind the screens again. Just those are just natural adjustments that
I love
elevator.
Can I just interject how much I love elevator, because I can actually see that one happening.
Yeah,
that is one that
the
actually
funny thing is
looks like what it says it is.
It's not like
it looks like
zipper
those doors
or pistol
are closing and you got stuck behind it.
Yeah, and
you stick your little arm out and it doesn't help.
Portland runs a little bit different variation of it, but it's the same basic principle. But that play is wonderful to me because I look at it and I'm like, you can see it coming a mile away. You know it's coming, and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, there is something you can do about it, but ultimately, if it's gonna turn into a good shot opportunity if you don't basically play it perfectly.
So good ball movement is all about ball movement, and that's entirely up to the Blazers.
Exactly,
doing the right thing.
I don't think they're running their offense any differently, other than taking and making more threes, and that alone is just them putting themselves in position to succeed and adjusting the lineups and rotations that everybody seems to lament Terry Stotts for recently, which makes absolutely no sense to me. But hey, hate who you got to hate.
Right. Now, at great risk of prolonging this longer, but I'm super curious now, what's the relationship between pick and rolls and ball movement?
It depends on how you run the pick and roll. Like there are times when the pick and roll itself is a decoy. You're trying to get action going on the other side. There are teams that don't run a ton of action on the other side of a pick and roll. Portland is one of those teams from time to time. While they typically lead the league in the last couple of years, they've led the league in off-ball movement or in screens off ball. They don't move a ton off of the pick and roll action. So again, it's about putting guys in the best position to succeed. When you're getting the pick and roll, Portland wants two things to happen. They either want Dame or CJ to get a good shot, or they want Yusuf Nurkic to get a good shot. The option C tier typically is, hey, let's get one of our shooters an open three with all of the action we have going here. And that to me is when you'll see more of the wing pick and rolls versus the straight down the middle pick and rolls.
It seems to me that the pick and roll, like what's the role of the people who are not involved in pick and roll? Is their job to be decoys then?
It
people
depends
who are
on
not involved in pick and rolls.
Yeah, it all depends on what the matchup is. Like if the pick and roll is with Nurkic and they're trying to pull the big out, Nurk's going to stay a little bit higher, and that's going to leave room for somebody to go on the back cut on the backside of the play. The pick and roll could be itself as a decoy, and CJ could be working off a down pick on the other side. Al-Farouq Aminu's role may be to be the strong side floor spacer. On the other side, he could be the weak side or the corner floor spacer. It all depends on what the scenario is. So it's not an either-or thing. Yeah, so they're constantly adjusting and changing the angles to keep the defense off balance, so you can't just take it away every single time with a hard trap or sagging off or the weak side help always coming from the same side. You want to make the defense, even though they've scouted you to death, you want to change the wrinkles. You want to change every little thing you can to hide what you're trying to do. And for just like the basic idea, just because you know what's coming doesn't mean you can stop it. That's what makes NBA players special. Like, you get CJ
because they're so skilled they can do it anyway,
and you can take everything you want to away, and Dame can still go step back from 25 feet and whap it in your face. And
right, and
now you're worried about that.
These guys drive into the hoop and taking the dump anyway, even though you're playing as good a defense as you possibly can. They can still get up and over you.
And when you do those plays, and when you make those plays, that's why I love Pat Connaughton dunking as often as possible. Those plays give a defense pause, and they elevate your current level, and that's why I think those plays are huge. And it's not a coincidence that those plays have become more frequent as Portland's offense has gotten better. Mm-hmm.
We'll talk next week about what's happening with the defense, maybe. How's that?
We can
enjoy this.
This is why I said that I was pretty comfortable that Portland would finish right inside the top 15. I said, what did I say a couple weeks ago? I want to say it was like a month ago. I said 13th or 14th is what they would probably finish. I didn't think they'd finish in the top 10. And I think this is why.
In offense or in
defense.
in defense. Okay.
Yeah, I think I said it was 13th or 14th. That sounds about right, isn't it? I'm normally really good about this, but I think that's where I was. But yeah, I figured the offense would come around and the defense would slowly fall back, because I think that's a natural thing.
Yeah. Well, I think that, the thing is we've seen the good defense, and I still don't feel like it's regressed back to what it looked like last year.
That's the thing. In the past, they didn't have the mentality they could win a possession. Dallas was a perfect example of that. Dallas started to make a little bit of a run. They're like, nah, screw this. And then they locked them up for a period and
they tightened it down.
And they ran them out of the gym. That's the kind of team that should win those games. That's what separates them from fighting for that 8th seed and fighting for that 5th seed.
Well, and when you have a high enough powered offense that you can win based on the number of points, if that's your natural inclination,
you don't have to win every defensive battle. You just have to be able to win the ones that matter.
You don't have to hold every team to 80 points to be a good defense. You have to know, like you said, know when to stop it. But speaking of when to stop it, we should probably move on. This has really satisfied a lot of my basketball talk that has not, the 3-day break has deprived me of.
You're putting it in your veins,
but
just tapping it up.
Yes. I literally started talking to somebody in line next to me at the grocery store about the Blazers because they. Okay,
I have to get this off my chest too. Speaking of talking to people in line, I don't want to cut you off, but this cannot stand. I went to the UFP Gonzaga game, and I had on one of my Blazers hoodies. One of you 20-something hipsters said, "Hey, man, go Zers. Stop calling them Zers, you lazy hipsters. For the love of God. Portland, Rip City,
hot button issue.
Blazers. Zers is not a thing. We are not Gonzaga. We don't go Zags or Zers. We don't zag, we don't zig, we don't zer. Knock it off. Get off my lawn.
All I would say to that is that I agree that is not my preferred nickname for the Blazers. But you know what? There's a next generation coming up behind us, Dan. And if we had to choose between them not wanting to even watch the Blazers at all,
then don't watch them, you Zer-loving fools.
You are so wrong. We want to continue a strong tradition of Blazer lovers in this town. And if that means they are calling it something that we're not fond of, think about all those people in Washington who completely changed the name of their team. And they got used to it.
No.
They'll call them the Wizards now.
No.
They don't have to like it, but they still have a team.
No. Kelly O'Coin still called them the Bullets the other day. That's what
we're going to agree to disagree on that.
I'm going to build the monument. Here lies the Portland Trailblazers where they died. This is where the Zers play now. This is not the same team. Ugh.
Wow. You got a nasty taste in your mouth out of that one. Well, from there, let's move on to talking about referees. Your other favorite topic.
Yeah. All right. Got me warmed up for this one.
Okay. So we needed to cover this briefly. We're not going to go into it. But
me and referees briefly. Yeah, this will go over well.
The NBA announced they're having an initiative designed to address the on-court working relationship between the NBA players and referees. There was an official release that's on NBA.com that you can go and you can read all about what they are agreeing to do. But basically, the league is going to work with teams, and they have a 5-point plan. And so here are their things that they're pledging to do. So Michelle Johnson, who is she's the head of referee options. So Michelle Johnson and Monty McCutcheon is the NBA vice president and head of referee development. So these two and their staffs are going to conduct meetings individually with all 30 teams to discuss rule interpretations, on-court conduct, and expectations of NBA referees. So each team is going to get a meeting with these executives to discuss those things. The league is going to reemphasize the respect of the game rules with referees, coaches, and players to ensure consistent enforcement of these violations. The NBA referee operations department is going to expand its overall rules education initiative for coaches, player, and team personnel. We have 2 more points, Dan. Johnson and McCutcheon are going to conduct enhanced training for the referees on conflict resolution.
That's cute.
And finally, through the NBA's officiating advisory council, the league is going to create opportunities for engagement with all key stakeholders. So they're going to have a bunch of meetings later. And that's supposed to start at the All-Star break. So from the funny noises that you were making while I was reading this, I'm getting the idea that you don't think this is going to make any difference at all.
Yeah, no. This is not going to make any difference. You don't think it's
going to make...
The only thing, and I just to make sure this is on record, I'm fairly certain I've said it before, just probably. The only thing that is going to change anything is if they tear the entire ref institution down. That's the only thing that will work, because these guys have all been trained the same way and they've operated the same style forever. Like the entire modern era, that basically the Stern era, the David Stern era as commissioner, that refs are going to conduct themselves and operate this way. This is nothing new that refs in play. Like people are like pointed out. Okay, now the Courtney Kirkland, Sean Livingston thing, that's something a little bit new. I'll agree with that. But stars getting teed up and tossed out, that happened and has happened in the past quite a bit, folks.
So how are you going to do this? Are you going to do it during an off season and suddenly the league is going to start up again some October and everything's going to be better?
No,
how are you going to implement that fast?
No, it's going to be awful. It's absolutely going to be awful. But you have
so you're going to tear everything down.
Yes,
and
tear down the
over
entire institution. Yeah, and what you start doing is you start ramping up now. You start building up. You build new initiatives to train new refs. Like this entire generation of referees that's currently in the NBA right now is atrocious. There's 3 refs on a given night that I can tell you night in, night out are going to be good. That's a problem.
You think only 3 of the 64 refs currently employed are good?
Consistently above average, yes, good. The fluctuation between how they will call a game, and it's not just the teams, it's the refs. Like it is just so rampantly wild. And Vegas reflects that. Like they have profiles on every referee. They know that referee X and referee Y working together is going to lead to typically more fouls for the away team or the home team. Like these things are all out there. And I think that that's a major problem. I think that the referees thinking that they're a part of the game is a major problem. I should not know the vast majority of the referees' names. That shouldn't be a thing. I shouldn't know you're out there. Yet when I see your name on the bottom of the chyron before the game, I'm sitting there going, "You've got to be kidding me! This crew." Now, granted, I look at it when it first gets posted in the morning, and I'm miserable about it all day, more often than not, because most of the referees are just awful. People will say, "Oh, they're the best in the world at what they do."
Wait, hold on a sec. That's a super blanket statement.
Yeah, I think they're bad.
I
think they're very bad at what they do. I think they're very bad at what they do. I think that
and you think that people could be trained better?
Yes, get people whose job it is to be an official. None of these guys are full-time officials. They have other jobs. That's a problem.
I want to learn more about that.
Like, why do we have guys who are lawyers who work as referees? And the idea is that they can't be corrupted financially. They're financially stable. Here's a crazy idea. Pay them an exorbitant amount of money to referee at the highest level in the world. Like it's not like the NBA is short this money. But they'll never do that because screwing with the status quo is way, way too big of a problem. And it admits that there's an issue.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think that you can tear the whole thing down unless you have buy-in from people to build it back up together. Because if one side of this just tears the whole thing down and builds it back up again without having buy-in from all
I think it's better
the parties,
for the officials.
It's not going to work. But this is a step forward to get all of the parties involved. Like if they were just if the players and the teams were just to sit there and complain in their little silos, and the refs were going to be over here and they're going to complain in their silos, and somebody decides they're going to tear the whole thing down and builds it back up without creating some sort of consensus between the groups before the new plan is in place, it's never going to work. I think this is a step that they have to take.
I think this is all optics. They have to make it look like they're doing something because Kevin Durant has been tossed from more games this season than in his entire career.
I don't think it's all optics. I think you have to engage people if change is going to come.
One
person can't just change up a whole bunch of new rules.
They do engage. They engage all season long. Mm-hmm. They do it before the season. They do it after the season. No, you've got a couple refs who I think have seriously crossed the line. Like Courtney Kirkland not officiating a game for the rest of the season would have been perfectly fine with me for his conduct with Sean Livingston. Like getting in Sean Livingston's face as a referee and instigating and basically headbutting him. Like I don't think he should be officiating a single game in the NBA this year after that incident. That's unbelievably awful. Like that level of stupidity is ridiculous and should never, ever be allowed to be conducted as an official. Ever. So like if you want to talk about that instance in particular, that's fine. But these players are acting big and bigger fools.
Dan, I don't want to talk about that instance because you can pick out individual instances over and over and over again and say, see, that's what's wrong with the referee. See, that's wrong with the referee.
I'm saying the players right now too.
Stop. The only way that you're going to build this back up again is if you have the buy-in from all parties and if all of the parties are working through it together.
There won't be any buy-in. There's why
there's definitely not going to be any buy-in if
this is why I say you have to break it down.
That makes all the decision.
There's no trust. There's no trust. You can't just make trust.
Well, how are you going to have trust if you're not going to I mean,
because the changes don't happen. They talk about these things all the time.
On multiple fronts. It can't just happen on one front. And one front is this slow and deliberate building of consensus through people having meetings and sitting through and hearing each other out and all that stuff that you don't like because you want to rush out there and do something. Oh. Well, all these people are laying the groundwork so that when that thing does happen, there's buy-in.
You're acting like this is the first time they've ever done this. They've done this time and time and time again. I've seen this record before.
Because
it doesn't
never
work.
Done.
Exactly.
There's always going to be there's always going to be a natural inclination for these two groups to butt heads. That's like the
you know how you get rid of that?
It's never
you get
done.
rid of the
They're
issues.
Always going to have to keep doing this.
You get rid of the fundamental issues that are causing these problems. And that's because of how the referees referee games right now. That needs to change.
I'm not disagreeing that there will need to be systemic changes, but you can't just make wholesale changes without understanding and building that consensus amongst all the parties.
There's hundreds of people that want to be professional referees. Get rid of the institution that is there. What do you have to lose? There's nothing for the NBA to lose other than some short-term credibility for getting rid of the old style of how NBA games are called.
But why shouldn't they right now, until that plan is in place, be trying to meet and work through things?
They can try it all they want, but they've done this before and it doesn't work. And if they build the relationships
now, when they do rebuild the whole thing, they'll have the relationship in place and they'll trust each other more.
You can't build a relationship. You can't build trust. You can't do any of that stuff when these two groups basically hate each other. There's a reason why every single year the same 4 or 5 officials who were the senior officials, which is kind of my point, are the most hated and least trusted in the league. It's not because they've been there or they're the most visible. It's because they have the most contentious calls. It's because they have the worst interactions with players. And no, don't get me wrong. The players this year have acted serious fools, and they deserve to get like KD's getting run deserved to happen. Steph getting run deserves to happen. Draymond acting stupid getting run deserves to happen. Like, granted, these are all the Warriors, but they act like petulant children sometimes, and it's ridiculous. There's been very few ejections where I was like, yeah, no, that shouldn't have happened. Like, the players are out of control. But the reason they're out of control is the way that referees are handling situations, the way that the inconsistencies in the call. And there's no amount of sitting down and talking that's going to change how they call the game. And that's my biggest point. You can sit down all you want. They've done this year after year after year. It seems like they're doing it more and more and more, and it's getting worse and worse and worse because each side digs in a little bit harder each time. It's the exact opposite of what you're proposing to happen actually happens. And that, to me, is the biggest problem. And that's why I keep hammering the point that you've got to tear down how the referees are trained, how they're educated, how they're taught to, or how they actually execute in-game officiating, what to look for, how to look for it, how to call a game, how to interact with players, everything. Because it's not working on a consistent basis. The fact that we can point to exact instances in time where officiating has been so bad that people are sitting here talking about how it ruined an entire game or an entire series, that's a problem. You would think it was something that the NBA would want to address.
I'm just saying they're not going to build it up if they don't try to make the effort to build the relationship so that everybody can build it back up together. So that it's not just one group saying this is how we're going to do it. It's just not going to work. They could build the whole thing up again and it could just break all over again. And it probably will anyway, because I mean, that's the nature of these two groups are continually in conflict. But we're not in conflict, are we, Dan?
No, we just disagree on this. I'm just vehemently stubborn on this because I don't think I am utterly convinced that there is no other way to fix this other than to burn it to the ground. I've held this position for like 3 years.
You can't just burn it all down without having something in place to build it back up. And it sounds to me it's almost like you didn't have an argument for that, Dan. Okay. Anyway, hey, thank you to Sean for writing in with that question.
Yes, it was a good question
earlier today. And did you get a chance to start an email account for us, or are we going to come up with one so if people want to send in more questions? I personally like those nice long questions that kind of with lots of detail.
I needed to confirm it. I didn't confirm it yet. I'll have it ready for the next one.
Okay, well, we'll do that. It's okay. We'll do it when we get a chance. So because I would love to hear more from listeners and what's on their mind and things that they want to know more about. I think this would be a really great time right now to announce that the Blazers Edge Night has sold or has collected enough tickets to send the kids and students who've requested tickets to Blazers Edge Night.
2,289 of them.
I think it's a record.
Yes, it is a record.
I believe Dave said it was a record.
Yes, I confirmed with Dave when we talked the other day when he had made the announcement.
Fabulous.
It is indeed a record. Yeah. Which means we'll be doing more next year.
Listeners and supporters who contributed. And if you don't already have tickets to that game, want to come to that game, it's going to be, 27th of February?
February 27th. It's going to be awesome.
Hopefully we'll get a really nice Blazer win that night and everybody can enjoy it together. Let's see. Do we have anything? Oh, you know what? We need to say, my goodness, Boogie.
Shout out to Boogie.
For that guy. Sucked. And Andre Roberson.
Yeah, there's the other one. Both of them were ruptured. Ruptured Achilles and ruptured patellar tendon. Like those are not fun injuries.
Those are heartbreaking, and this Trailblazer community knows how devastating those particular injuries can be when your stars get them. So they do have familiarity with each injury, which is just awesome. I'm not blowing smoke here, Dan. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I had to think about that. I'm like, oh, never mind. We've had a couple of ruptured patellas, or ruptured patellar tendons, I should say. Yeah, so those suck.
And a total recovery, man. That's just devastating. I mean, for whatever Boogie, whatever storylines Boogie creates, you never want something like that to happen. Yeah. He's a good player. He's a good man who contributes a lot to the community, and I hope he can get back on his feet and, as soon as he can. But wow, what a disappointment.
Yeah.
Anyway, got anything else you want to say before he takes us out of here?
Yeah, of course. I have to promote the good stuff. For those that aren't aware, this podcast is just going to come out tomorrow morning on Monday morning. Well, Tuesday evening, while you won't be catching the Blazers broadcast on the local feed, it'll be on TNT. You can turn to the local feed on NBC Sports at 7 p.m. to catch the debut of Blazers Outsiders with me, Shane Brennan, and Joe Simons. Would really appreciate everybody coming in, hopping on. If you got questions, please hop on Twitter, hop on Facebook, go and shoot them our way. This should be fun, one way or another.
So you will be able to watch it on TV and on Facebook.
I can't confirm
starting on Tuesday.
I can't confirm the Facebook yet. They're still working some details out with regional rights and stuff like that. Facebook's a little wonky with stuff that's on TV, so. I'm still trying to get the exact details, but for certain we are on TV at 7 p.m. That game night, that is the only game night we will be on as of I know right now. Otherwise, we'll be on non-game nights at 7 p.m. on NBC Sports Northwest.
So you're going to be the lead-in to the game?
Yes, but only for that night.
Dang, Danny, that's
only for that
big
night.
time.
Well, remember that's a TNT game, so we'll be the local lead-in. So if you don't want to watch Chuck and Shaq and
the
Ernie
end
and
of
Kenny,
whatever game is before,
you can hop in and watch with us live. So it should be fun.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations to you and to Joe and Shane too. Good for you. I'm super excited for you. That's going to be fun to see you up there on regular TV. Usually I watch you on my little Facebook screen, so it'll be fun to watch you up on the big screen.
Yeah, it's going to be really
happy for you guys.
It's going to be really cool. I'm really stoked, and I'm already a little bit worried because I was shaving the other day or doing a little manscaping on the face, and I took my mustache off. So my TV appearance will be mustacheless.
Okay, never say manscaping again on this show. And are you like standing in front of the mirror now going, oh my God, my face, my beautiful face, it's how I make my living? Because if so, I need to come in there and take you down a few notches because it's getting ridiculous.
It's one of those circus mirrors. It makes me look skinnier. That's what I could go for.
Well, congratulations to you. If anybody, cares about wanting to find me on Twitter, I know I'm not a big star or anything, but people can find me on Twitter at
You're a star in our hearts.
EBBiggs. Oh, that's the nicest thing you've ever said to me, Dan. I think I might have teared up a little bit. Tell people how they can find you.
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at DMarang, at DMARANG. And again, you can find me on Blazers Outsiders on non-game nights at 7 p.m. on NBC Sports Northwest.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Whoop.
All right. Okie dokie. Oh, thank goodness. Okay, cool. Anything else? I got to get going. I got to get ready.